Hello, and welcome to the FlowRy Show, where generations intertwine, sharing stories, insights, and dreams. Whether you're a seasoned sage or a curious young mind, we are all students in the grand classroom of life. Join with me as my co-host, Mike Ryan, and I'm Nicole Flowers, as we explore a tapestry woven with threads of collaboration, dreams, and lessons learned along the way. In today's segment, we're going to talk about designing products and services across generations. And we have a very esteemed guest with us. Mike, why don't you introduce our esteemed guest to our listeners as we dig into what it means to build remarkable products across multiple generations?
Thanks, Nicole. Yeah, I'd like to introduce Dennis Boyle, who I've known, I think, for about a decade or so. And we met, and I had participated in his company's on a smaller scale. We do an annual, it's called DocSF, and look at digital health within healthcare. And truly a pioneer with the IDEO founding back in a few years ago, 1980, I believe. And Dennis has been there for over 45 years and 6 months, which definitely covers many generations. But I don't know how he stays so young. The other thing that he likes to do is, have innovation and work with young middle minds and people throughout those 45 years of working with the company and leading it, and working with other companies to look at design thinking. He's an engineer from Fighting Irish, I believe, Notre Dame, as well as a Stanford mechanical engineer. He got his background. So he definitely has a big brain and very humble. But I will toot his horn a little bit. I think he's named patent on 55 patents that he's accumulated over the years. And and one of the things that I'm interested in, given my background, is he's been running for about 2 decades, Design Health, or Health with, I'm dyslexic, so it's Design for Health. And it's just an extraordinary mind. And we're very fortunate to have Dennis here. And so with that, Dennis, I will give you the floor or the video.
Okay. Honored to be here. Thank you, Nicole and Mike, for inviting me. I got a lot of stories. We might have many multiple sessions of this, but I'm ready to talk and show and tell a few that kind of I got the brief how we work across generations, and the heart of our process is what we call design thinking. And really, it's if I can flip up a couple of slides, I'll do that now. Let's see if I can. Let's see if I'll share the screen. And then I go up to there. I'm not perfectly used to this format here. Let's see if that works.
All good.
Well, I gotta share the. Okay, now I gotta.
There you go.
There you got your pictures there. So, let's try this. So, it's good to just give a baseline of what design thinking is. It's a process that we've used, kind of developed over all these 45 plus years, and it's used with multidisciplinary teams. And everybody uses it now, but we feel kind of that we helped develop it from what we learned at Stanford as product designers and engineers. But it's this kind of fundamentally human-centered process. And this process starts with what people need, what's desirable, what they need, and then you add business factors and technical factors, or what's viable and what's feasible. And so that's kind of a bit of a preamble. And this process has 3 main phases. There's an inspiration phase, and an ideation phase, and an implementation phase. And they kind of all overlap. But if you skip the inspiration phase, the whole empathy getting phase, you'll end up possibly in the wrong place, trying to design and invent solutions to problems. So maybe I'll just leave it there for Nicole, and we'll try to undo my.
Dennis, as we get underway, you have certainly shaped Ideal's creative direction while working with clients across diverse industries. As you have just shared with our listeners, you lead with a human-centered design approach, which has transformed your organization to tackle complex challenges and develop user-focused solutions. I would imagine over the past 45 years, 8 months, as you started to allude to this, you have had some very fascinating challenges in modern design and how you go about creating solutions that transcends the generational divide, looking at each age group and the different expectations that they have. Just dig in a bit more with us on the approach for designing products. What are the things that you think about as you're peeling back those layers? How you go about designing the services that truly caters to the respective age group. And you also indicated that there is empathy that is at the helm and is used as a bridge, a role in understanding the unique needs and preferences of your various clients. So help us unfold your design approach and just dig in a bit further for our listeners.
Okay, well, let me flip up a screen again, if that's okay, because I like talking to pictures. That's one of my strengths or weaknesses. And we'll see if that fits. Okay, I got multiple steps here. Where is it? There it is. So, can you see this screen? Sharing screen. Can you see this?
Yes.
Screen of so. Yeah, we started out as product designers, and so that's the kind of the heart of your question, Nicole. We've been lucky to be at the front end of so many different industries. It's quite remarkable. Early on, about 45 years ago, somebody our age came in and yelled at us that he wanted a $10 mouse. And we did not know what a mouse was, and we wondered, why would you name your computer company after a fruit anyway? What's that all about? So we got to design the first commercial mouse for Apple, and then Bill Gates came and asked us to do a mouse after that 5 years later or so. So we did the first Microsoft mouse. But to answer your bedrock question is, you really we had to go out and build a lot of prototypes and test a lot of things, understand what people would do with something called a mouse, and we had to figure out how to make it too. Nobody had really made a commercial version of this. It was invented at Stanford Research Park,
right?
Stanford. Yeah. So we do. Well, the heart of this process is really understanding what people need, and then you quickly have to build a lot of prototypes so that you can understand what people will do with something that you're trying to design, and you want to figure out all the places that they can succeed and especially where they can fail. And so you have to build a lot of prototypes and test them, and then learn from them, and then build them back into your designs. Some other things I'll just show, since this screen is up, is we did all these. Eli Lilly asked us to make the whole experience of injecting insulin better, so we got to design these insulin pens. This is in the 90s, so that people could carry a pen around instead of a vial and a syringe, and dial up their dose. And that's turned out to be, a super successful design, because it helps people that need insulin carry this around carefully and not make mistakes when they inject the insulin.
Right.
Then there's others, the early office chairs and the early laptops for grid, early handheld computers for palm computing, the first automatic electronic defibrillator for a startup in San Jose, California, HeartStream, and that was bought by Philips. So in each case, all these things are at the back end of a big, long process of understanding who's going to use these products, and then buying a lot of prototypes and testing a lot of things, finding out what goes wrong, and then figuring out what to produce. So it's, in some cases, the medical products 2, 3, 4, 5 years long. You just can't afford to ship anything and make mistakes with it. So computers, not so long. Computer products, you can do those more quickly, in a year or two, because, well, if they fail, it's not necessarily life threatening, although you try to make them as good as you can get. So
yeah, that's extraordinary. I mean, you look at those, and those products that you worked with their clients in developing, starting with Apple and others, is quite extraordinary, because we this current generation, I'll put myself in that as well. I mean, it is now ubiquitous. I'm dyslexic. It's everywhere, right? And we don't even think about it, from the ejector pens, or of course the mouse, and the different evolution and changes. But I mean, what you've been able to do with your teams over the last 45 years is really change the world in a little bit better, right? By having that interaction of mechanical engineering and human design, human usage. But if you build it, they don't always come, right? If you're just to build things, and I think that's the beauty of you having a process. And I've participated in this process. I think we took some type of healthcare thing, and we went through the brainstorming, and we did this in a condensed version, just to kind of show people that we're mostly physicians of, what the process is like. And it's even after the end, I think we did it over 2 days. So extraordinary, right? And you can see, if you did this over years or whatever, and tests fail, reiterate, and all that kind of stuff. It's really. I mean, did that come out of mechanical engineering, of how you were trained, Dennis?
Well,
I'm curious how that happened.
Well, it's a good question. The Stanford design program started in the 50s and the 60s. Really has that as a bedrock principle. How to make engineers creative was sort of the goal of the early pioneers of this program. Some of them have lived into just the last few years, into their late 90s. One or two are still going in their late 90s. It's amazing. But they had this vision of, like, engineers need to be more creative. Engineers can't just be rote problem solvers. They need to be problem finders. And you need to, you can't design for yourself.
Right.
I mean, you need to go out and figure out who needs what you're designing. And that's been kind of the bedrock principle that started the Stanford design program. That's now in the D school at Stanford. And it helped start IDEO over 45 years ago as a principle. And then David Kelly, who really in the beginning started IDEO, went back to Stanford and started the design school, the D school, they called it, 20 years ago. And that tries to bring people from all graduate programs, all undergraduate programs together to learn design and apply design in their fields. So it's kind of like a crossroads.
Cross-pollination, right?
Yeah, right.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Yeah.
I mean, and it's quite interesting, Dennis, because you started to hint on this, creating inclusive environments and ensuring that engineers are also creators. They're not just problem solvers, they're problem finders. How did you go about fostering that type of collaboration and knowledge sharing amongst different teams who are coming from different vantage points, different perspectives to create products and creating that cohesive life cycle, and also mentoring the different age groups?
Well, good. It's a good question. This bedrock process is shared by everybody that works at IDEO, about 350 people plus. And it's sort of like we hire our own students, we hire people because they get this process, they understand it, and they work well in teams. And so it's kind of part of the cost of doing business, if you will, or the requirement for becoming a part of a design firm like IDEO, that you use this process and you work well in teams no matter what your discipline is. So a typical discipline in there, all those products I showed were kind of the early days of the company in the 80s and the 90s and 2000s. We still do some product design, but now it's much more into kind of service design, experience design, strategic design. So I'll show a few projects here in a minute, but it's just people come to IDEO because they want to use this process, and they want to collaborate with each other. They can be engineers, they can be designers of all sorts, industrial designers, graphic designers, interaction designers, they can be business designers. So we have 8 or 10, 12 different types of design that, depending on what kind of project we're working on, we mix and match the disciplines. But in the foundation of everything is trying to use design thinking and use it carefully with customers or patients or users, we call them, and understand what they need and go outside your own experience, because designing for yourself isn't good enough. It's just not. You need to step out and design for others.
That just brought up something kind of outside, because I'm a dyslexic thinker, and one thing that I think of, another famous dyslexic, what if Edison had you to work with at IDEO, right? And he wouldn't have gone through those, what they said, 100 or how many hundreds of patents for the light bulb, with that, because he was not designing, I assume, for himself, right?
Right.
And then what if that could have accelerated the ultimate light bulb, flash of a light bulb overhead. And because I think there's also, I don't know if it was Franklin or whoever came up with the idea that, two heads are better than one. Well, then maybe 15, if you can actually get something done, is maybe better. Or I don't know what your typical, what do you call it? A group, teams. Are they 5 people, or are they?
It's 3 or 4 or 5 on teams.
Yeah.
But you have brainstorming sessions, you have ideation sessions, you have review sessions that have more. And so you're mixing and matching people. But yes, a bedrock team is probably 3 or 4 or 5 people. But yeah, Edison's a great example. And so it's like Steve Jobs. These people are at some pinnacle. They're kind of hard to completely understand, as you probably know. But in the long run, they're depending on big teams to understand what their customers need. Even though they're remarkable inventors, the Edisonian technique is quite famous. Where, like you said, he'll make thousands of prototypes, just to test things. Right. But in the end, these things have to work for whoever needs them, whether it's the phonograph or the light bulb or the work in the radio field or anything. They have to be actual things that people know how to operate and use. So that's where product design or design thinking comes in. But it's more of a process that's been developed just in the last 50, 60 years. People lucked into it earlier than that, but made more of a definite process out of that over the last 40, 50 years.
Dennis, IDEO has successfully built multi-generational design teams. I think the evidence speaks for itself. You go through, as you shared, that your students become members of the IDEO team. So while they're in school, you're recruiting your diverse talent and assembling the teams that will provide the complementary generational perspective and their areas of focus. How do you go about measuring team success? What does that look like as you're building out from products to now service designs, as you've indicated? And what advice would you give to leaders who are looking to build diverse and effective teams, leveraging from each strength from the generation? So what are those effective metrics that you use to demonstrate that our team is being successful? And what advice would you give to leaders to build diverse and effective teams?
Okay. I think I'll show a few more projects just to help answer that, Nicole, because strong, good questions. But let's do this again. I have to go through all the steps that I don't remember. Okay, here we go. Let's share this screen. So you see this screen here, and
design process.
Yeah. We'll flip to a more of a. So you have to find people that just love this process of gaining empathy. They go out and immerse themselves in the problem, and they find that exciting, interesting, and valuable. And we call this design research. And these are, well, I'm probably the most senior member at IDEO now, which is in so
45 years and eight months.
50,
Yeah.
at the early 70s now, and there's people starting in their late teens and early 20s, so there's a big gap. But we fill it all up. I mean, everybody has this design research or this search for inspiration as part of their goal, their mission, their job title. It's a mixture of design and human factors and anthropology. The anthropology is interesting because people have to understand what people need, and then psychology. So you immerse yourself in the hospital situation, for instance, and take a lot of notes and videos, and surveys and focus groups come later, but not right at the beginning. You really have to experience these things yourself, and then try to understand what other people are experiencing. And here's a good example of, we're trying to design an IV drip controller for a company called Medtronic. And we saw this scene over and over, where a nurse was trying to operate the product with one hand, the control. So we designed this programmer to be used with one hand, so supporting nurses and physicians to do their job here. So that's one thing. But again, we're trying to, across whatever generation we're on this, we're trying to get what people are thinking and what they're feeling. But you have to listen to what they're saying, but especially watch what they're doing, because sometimes those two things conflict. So and there's these teams that you need to understand people through different lenses: cognitive, emotional, physical, social, cultural. And that if you don't want to do this, then you're not a good candidate for IDEO. But if you do, if you find this energizing and exciting and just a discovery process, this is really really a marvelous way to go, because over the years we've found it to be successful. So I can start with this, or you can ask another question, but I thought I put this together because we did this work for AARP, and you might enjoy seeing it or hearing about it. we try to do some work in this design and aging for connected independent living and connected living, and we call this the future of aging in place. And so we interviewed and observed 50 different older Americans and made all these principles, and then we created these books, Design and Aging for Independent Living, Design and Aging for Connected Living. And these are available on IDEO's website for free. They're PDFs. So you can go to IDEO.com to search for AARP and download these two books. They were really kind of designed for entrepreneurs to look at and understand and be inspired to invent processes, solutions, products, services for older Americans. So I'll leave it at that, and we'll come back.
As a former hospital CEO and healthcare person, second generation, Nicole, and actually we've interviewed my mom who's 94. I think having something like that for not necessarily a younger generation, but a different generation than someone who is in that age group, and provide basically a blueprint or a playbook to a high level. It sounds like that you've done a lot of hard work for an entrepreneur that suddenly can develop a device, a solution, a service, or whatever. So that's really extraordinary. I think I don't know if the general public really knows it. So hopefully through this broadcast we can share that, because I will look into that as well, because and add it to a resource as I talk to entrepreneurs that are in the healthcare. So bravo for you guys for doing that.
Well, that was work we did for AARP, but United Healthcare and a couple other organizations sponsored that. So again, all this is available free on our website. You can just download a PDF of both those books. So there you have it.
That's wonderful. I'll tell you, it's a small world, right? But I wouldn't want to paint it, as someone once said. But you've been there, IDEO, for 45 years. About close to 50 years ago, my sister married a PhD named Karanian, and I believe you worked with Barbara Karanian in some of the design thinking over the years. And of course, she just praises you as cool classes.
Or you mean Barbara Beskind?
And Barbara Karanian. I know, unless you changed her name, it could happen. But she's at, I think, the Stanford. She's probably in the D school. But anyway.
It's okay. Oh, sure.
Yeah,
sure.
They're constantly, bringing in the next generation. Do you see anything? And I know you covered the core, what you're looking for, whether it's the different schools. But is there? I guess they have to have the interest, and how do you? Not vet, but how do you identify the talent that you think would be well, at least in participating, and then eventually maybe joining the 350? That's an extraordinary number too that you've built up over the years.
Well, we have offices in 5 locations: San Francisco, and then Chicago, Boston, London, and Shanghai. And all of our people in each of those locations, not all, but some, go teach classes in the colleges and universities near them, and there's lots and lots in every case. So we see our best students, and we often have them in as interns, and then if it all works out, it's kind of like being in a class is like a 3-month interview, and being an intern is like another 3-month interview. So
right.
That's a good strategy for finding good, candidates to join us at IDEO. And so, that's probably one of our not so secret weapons.
No, it's great. I think it's been, replicated by others that have seen that. And again, I'm interested in the 350. What's the and you may not know this because I know you're more emeritus, and I know you're working with companies and trying to and anyway, I can't say the word, but kind of tell them the story of IDEO. But what does that look like? Is there a tenure typically that you have, or the average person there has been there for 5 years, 10 years, 45 years and 6 months?
Well, I think it's going to be exactly 45 in a couple of weeks. So, but whatever, who's counting, right? Well,
apparently LinkedIn is.
We have a lot of I'm just going to take a wild guess at the average age of the company's 30s, early 30s or 30s or 30, something like that. But there's a big range. I've actually got another story. I mean, because design is everybody's business, but we get a lot of young talent, which is awesome to see because they really have to own the future and take over. In the area of AI, for instance, we've got an unbelievable team that they're in the late 20s and early 30s. They're just taking on this whole area. It's just remarkable to see, and doing work and running workshops and doing TED AI talks and so on. It's pretty cool. But yeah, there's a role for everybody, and Nicole asked this earlier, but you're really mixing disciplines and mixing experience levels.
Sure.
So there's lots of leaders that are in their 40s, 50s, and 60s at IDEO as well. But here's a cool story. Let me just flip up one more thing for you guys.
Sure, sounds good.
We share entire screen. Well, no, that's not what I want. I have to go back. Sorry.
It's all good. It's all creative process.
Yeah, there's just more. They have more steps than I'm used to. So share screen. Go to this thing. Okay, now go back to where's my show? Here it is. Now share entire screen. Okay, so it's like 6 steps. I would change this. So we'll come back to this in a minute. But there's a woman named Barbara Beskind that contacted us when she was 89 years old. She was a former Army occupational therapist for like 40 years, and she'd written books. She sent us a message saying, "I'm 89. I'm in a assisted living, and I need more things to do." So we hired her for about 6 years as a designer, and it's the most amazing thing. She worked with us as part-time until she was 95, and she helped design some walkers and was a consultant on many things. And the coolest thing is, the most amazing thing is, she is still alive at 101. She decided to back off.
Wow, she's just getting started.
So here I am at Medicine X. Maybe you came to that, Mike. But I'm interviewing her on stage 10 years ago. She called me that nice young Irish boy, which is kind of all relative.
It's all relative.
Yeah. So anyway, she's really an amazing person that's still going, and she had a lot of all this experience with occupational therapy as a designer. She tried to get an industrial design school in 1945, but they wouldn't accept women. So she did occupational therapy, and she was famous at that. She helped us with the Zen Hospice project, the End Well, we called it, with B.J. Miller, and the whole dying happens to all of us program. So pretty
apparently not her.
No, well,
not yet.
Yeah. I'll just flip through this last thing. So she helped us a little bit with this, and many other people did, with this pill pack project, that when you have all sorts of 60 million Americans are on 6 medications or more. And so we worked with a startup in the East Coast that tried to solve this problem. And, the state of the art was putting all your pills in these little boxes. And so what we worked on with them is to try to create something that solved the problem. And what came out of the whole design process was this online pharmacy that keeps track of all your prescriptions and refills them and manages all this behind the scenes so that you're not ever out of prescriptions, and you're not making mistakes by putting the wrong pills in the wrong bottles. And then every week you get a UPS package that has your medications with the date, the day, and the time on it. And so that turned out to be so successful that Amazon bought this company.
Famous story. Yeah, extraordinary story.
There you have it. So
now that's great. I mean, just going back to what was her name, Barbara, or what was
Barbara Beskind?
Yeah. I mean, just I just became a grandfather, and they say my grandson will probably, like many, because of the advances in AI and health and all that, will probably live over 110 theoretically, right? And if you look at part of that and how she started when she was 89, worked to 95. Theoretically, she probably could still work, and how the evolution of work, right, and careers. And they say the human being will go through 5 different types of career. And, then what are the different products and kind of what IDEO is doing and solutions. It's really extraordinary. So, bravo for what you started, and involved with. LinkedIn says you've been 45 in 6 months. That's why we both say it.
Okay, that's okay.
You've actually experienced it. We're just going off hearsay.
I'll accept that.
Okay.
So yeah, I think that's a good observation, Michael. I think we all, as a society, need to try to help find roles for people at all ages, as a contributors to society, and as long as you would like to, and so I think that's a worthy goal for this program you and Nicole have, and try to advance that philosophy.
Absolutely, Dennis. And I strongly believe that both you and the team at IDEO, you guys are championed for future of inclusive design and leadership. As you have demonstrated, we talk about emerging technologies such as AI and how that is reshaping how we address design challenges and perspective. The evolution of the workplace. I mean, here at IDEO, you have about 5 generations working side by side, solving problems and demonstrating their leadership, whether they're still in college as students who aspire to become, or folks who are very seasoned. And also Barbara, who was saying, I still got a lot of gas in the tank. I do have things to impart. So that whole design education and the continuum of that, paying it forward. Any final advice, Dennis, would you give to designers and leaders who want to create more inclusive, cross-generational products, services, and organizations? Do you have any final advice or nuggets for our listeners?
Well, it comes down to creating, really wonderful teams, great teams that have multidisciplinary and multi-generational, and finding people that are inspired to work that way in your organizations, so that when you put these creative teams together to invent something, a product, a service, a strategy, an experience, that they're successful. So it's important to think big. I think multi-generational and multidisciplinary at the same time, in my experience. So hope that is helpful.
Wonderful advice, and we really appreciate your time today. Nicole, you want to wrap it up?
Dennis, it has been a pleasure for our listeners, for Mike and I, to just hear your insights and crossing generations, how you have used design thinking to bridge the gap. You have allowed us to connect with you and the IDEO team at a much deeper level, learning from your experiences, the different projects you and your team have created, how you go about collaborating and fostering understanding. To our listeners, as we navigate the tapestry of life, remember that every chapter offers new lessons, opportunities, and connections. Embrace the journey, cherish the moments, and continue to learn, grow, and inspire. Until next time, thank you for listening in on the FlowRy Show.
All right. It's been an honor, guys.
Wonderful.
Looks like we're going to talk soon too. So.
Yeah.